If there's anything that happens to my makeup that makes me insecure, I would have to say concealer creasing is the number one thing. I just cannot stand it. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to stop your concealer from creasing in 5 easy steps. And I've tried so many techniques, okay? I am committed to fixing this problem, and obviously, disclaimer, everyone has lines under their eyes, and to some degree, you will always see those lines, but I'm talking about creasing, product settling in those lines, becoming more visible, more accentuating those areas. We don't want that, and I found a technique that actually works. If you want to learn how to stop your concealer from creasing, keep on watching, but before we get into the video, please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. It really means a lot. First things first, you cannot overlook skin prep. So the under eye area is a very sensitive area, and I've found that less is more when it comes to prep, and applying too heavy of a moisturizer under the eyes can really cause the concealer to sink into those areas and crease. So step number one, and an often overlooked step, is actually skincare. Underneath the eyes is a very sensitive and delicate area, and often we make the mistake of applying too heavy of a moisturizer underneath that area, and that can really cause the concealer underneath your eyes to crease and just feel really heavy throughout the day. So my advice would be to apply a more lightweight under eye cream. So this could be an under eye gel, just a lightweight consistency, or even an under eye serum. Anything that is light you want to use and stick to that, and you also want to be mindful not to over apply. I'm using the Biossance Squalane Marine Algae Eye Cream. This eye cream claims to visibly firm and instantly smooth, and I do find this formula a really beautiful formula underneath the eyes. It is not too heavy at all. I'm just applying a small amount of that. I usually like to use about a rice grain size amount and no more than that. Do you see how little product I'm really using? Truly, you do not need any more than this. I'm just working this into the delicate under eye area with my fingers, being really careful not to tug my eye too much. And do not forget to drag that cream all the way to the temples. So I really want to show you in real time how effective and how much of a difference this technique makes. So on the other side of my face, I'm actually going to go in not really with the opposite technique, but more so what I commonly see people doing. Honestly, I see people all the time going in with a quite heavy eye cream underneath the eyes. So that's what I'm going to do on the other side. And the eye cream that I'm applying on the other side is in no way a bad eye cream. I like to use this one at night. However, I'm going in with a pretty thick layer, and the consistency is a lot thicker, and you guys are going to see the difference that this makes once concealer applies on top of it. So the next step is applying foundation. However, I want to make note that you really want to avoid applying foundation to your under eye area. I'm going in with the Chantecaille Future Skin Oil-Free Gel Foundation. And the reason you want to avoid your under eye area is because, kind of in line with the last step, the more product you apply underneath your eyes, the more likely it is that it's actually going to bunch up and gather and pill and just settle in really unflatteringly underneath the eyes. So less is more, and definitely be mindful not to apply your foundation, especially if you're wearing a full coverage foundation underneath that eye area. It's going to get too heavy. This foundation is pretty lightweight, but on the right side of my face, I'm going to blend it up and underneath my eye, just so you guys can see at the end of the video the difference. And you can see on the left side of my face, I really am being mindful to avoid that delicate under eye area. Okay, so foundation is applied, and while this side might look pretty and fresh with that foundation applied on top, you're going to see how it might look a little less pretty later. So now let's move on to step 3. So we are going to apply our concealer now. And I'm going to be demonstrating 2 very different techniques for application. One will be the traditional technique that I see a lot here on social media, and then the other will be my signature technique, which I do not see very often. So unless you live under a rock, I'm sure you've heard of the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. It is a very popular concealer here on the internet, and although it is a great concealer, and I think those of you with smooth under eyes and those of you who want a very full coverage under eye would maybe like this concealer, I think there are better options out there, and this concealer particularly I don't think is doing you any favors when it comes to the fine line department. I'm going to apply it on the right side of my face in a very traditional way that I see people applying their concealer. Nothing really new here. You'll see that I'm not applying the concealer very sparingly. I'm applying it directly on the face, and I'm blending it out with a beauty blender. You'll also notice that I've applied it very close to my lower lash line as well. Okay, so that is that concealer applied. Very full coverage, very brightening. So now on the other side, I'm going to demonstrate my technique. My personal favorite concealer for longevity underneath the eyes and anti-creasing would be the Maybelline Superstay Activewear Concealer. This is a super affordable concealer you can buy at the drugstore, and what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to apply that concealer on the back of your hand. We're not going to be applying this directly to our face. And for me, I personally like applying concealer with a concealer brush, but you can use a sponge if you want. I like to spray my concealer brush with a little bit of setting spray. You can also spray your beauty blender with setting spray for this step if you want, but I do recommend a brush. I'm just using the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. And then once I have the setting spray on the brush, I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of that concealer on my brush, making sure that it is evenly coated so I don't get any patchiness on my eye. Once my brush is coated, I'm going to start applying that underneath my eye. I'm not going to apply that concealer super close to the lower lash line. I'm going to apply it a little bit lower than you typically see. And this is going to prevent us from directly applying and depositing product into those fine lines. I'm going to apply the bulk of the product a little bit lower and then blend up whatever's left up towards my lower lash line. Spraying that setting spray onto our brush before we apply that concealer is really going to allow it to extend the longevity of that concealer and prevent that creasing from happening. Both sides have concealer applied now. I can already see on this side of my face that there is a little bit of creasing. Nothing too bad yet. It's still looking pretty good. This side, there is no creasing yet, but it does look a little bit lighter and a little bit more natural. This side does look a little bit brighter, but once we add powder, it's going to brighten things up on this side and everything will come together. But already I just feel like this side looks so much more natural, and this side is already beginning to kind of make me look a little bit like aged. Moving on to step 4, let's talk setting powders. I hope I don't break too many hearts here with this step. I'm using the Huda Beauty setting powder, and again, by no means a bad product. However, I would not really say that this powder is super fine line friendly. It's not the most finely milled powder that I've ever used, and I tend to notice it settles into my fine lines a little bit if I'm not super careful. I'm a professional makeup artist, and so I can make this product work, but I see so many people using this product, and honestly, in my opinion, there are better products out there that are going to prevent your under eye area from creasing. So I'm going to show you what this looks like on this side. So I see a lot of people set their under eyes with a brush. It's not my favorite technique. I do prefer a powder puff, although I will say I do see a lot of people misusing the powder puff, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate on this side of my face. So I'm going to go in with quite a bit of that Huda Beauty powder. I see people going in with quite a heavy hand with this powder, but you'll notice that I'm going straight in without blending out my concealer underneath first. This is going to set any creases we have under our eyes into place. All right, now moving on to this side of my face, I'm going in with the Laura Mercier Secret Under Eye Brightening Powder. And if you watch my channel, you've probably heard me rave about this powder. I think it is extremely underrated. It is so finely milled, much more finely milled than the Huda Beauty one. And so I find that since it is so fine and delicate, it does not settle into the under eye creases nearly as much. But what I like to do before going in and setting my under eye area is I like to take a sponge, whether it's a beauty blender or in this case I'm using a flower nose finger sponge. I like to go in and pat my concealer underneath my eyes so I remove any fine lines and creases that have already started to form before I set my under eyes. This is going to make sure that we're not setting those lines into place all day long. It's also going to absorb any excess product. And then without moving around too much, I'm going to take some of that Laura Mercier under eye setting powder and I'm going to begin to set under my eyes using the one size powder puff. I love these little powder puffs. They're so precise. I'm going to try and link this in the description box below. So I've gone through my 5-step technique, which is on this side, and then I've gone through a more traditional technique that I see pretty much everywhere on the internet on this side. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of my makeup. I'm going to apply my contour and blush and those sorts of things, and then I will be right back. We're going to do a check-in before I do a wear test. Okay, so I've completed the rest of my makeup and it is almost 3 p.m. and I have a bunch of stuff that I need to do for the evening. I'm going to be going out. It's hot outside, so we'll see how well this holds up. Some things I want to note right off the bat. I don't know if you can tell, but if you zoom in and look, this side where I did the kind of more traditional technique that I see everywhere, my under eyes look a little bit just kind of dry almost, and the skin underneath my eyes doesn't seem to be looking as fresh and youthful as this side. But let's see how things wear throughout the day. Let's see which one ends up creasing less. I'm going to check in with you guys in a couple of hours, so I will see you later. All right, so I'm back. It is 10:40 p.m. So it has been many hours since I've seen you last, and let's do a little check-in on the under eye area, shall we? So I did take a look at the makeup. I didn't really touch up my makeup too much. I put on some lipstick and lip gloss because I was filming some lip content, and I also put some highlighter on, but that's about it. I did not touch up my under eyes at all. And what I noticed immediately is this eye where I did my signature technique. If you look closely, there's no creasing underneath the eyes. Obviously, you can see where I have my lines, like my natural lines in my face. Those are never going to disappear, but the product has not settled into that area at all. It looks really natural. It doesn't look too overdone. It doesn't look like I'm aged on this side, whereas on this side, although the coverage is more intense, I personally like a bit more of a natural look, but to each their own. You can clearly see when I pull my skin down or when I look up, you can see where that product has settled into my fine lines. It just kind of aged me a little bit. It looks a little bit more heavy. I personally am so impressed with how my signature technique wears throughout the day. It has been a hot day. I've been doing things, running around, and it's held up so well. I remember wearing this technique for a wedding. So I woke up really early to do the wedding during the day, and then they had nighttime festivities. I think I had my makeup on for like something crazy, like 14 hours, 16 hours or something. And when I came home at the end of the day, no creasing. It was crazy. But anyways, final verdict, I do prefer my technique, but let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm really curious. But yeah, if you haven't already, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel if you found any of these tips helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.